Hi guys, it's MicheleMarieDalene. This is September 9th, 2014. Hail Mary me to all of you. Of course, I am at the Open Door Soup Kitchen. At the time of recording, it is 9:34 a.m. The temperature outside is 15 degrees. And today, of course, it will be a very normal day for me. I have a couple appointments this afternoon. One of them is for the paperwork for the Section 8 program, which will be used to determine my contractual rent obligation for the next when my lease is renewed. My lease will be renewed on December of 2014, but my landlord is going to be processing, obviously, as a Section 8, the information ahead of time to make sure that, because when the Winchester Housing Authority closed down and J.M. and Amelia and Associates took it over, which is a regional program under the state of Connecticut housing program. The one of the things is that now they got a huge caseload, and so to deal with that, they are, of course, trying to combine the people together and try to get all the paperwork done for the due dates of their contracts, which in my case, my lease will expire in November of 2014. So they wanted to get the stuff done ahead of time. So we'll see what happens. Coming up this winter will be fairly cold here in New England. A good chance of possible blizzard conditions. Several projections show this to be the case. Please understand that is not necessarily always the case. When you're dealing with extended forecast that far in the future, things can go awry in the most uncomfortable way imaginable. Let me, for example, last night, as already explained to you, that on my YouTube channel, I will be focusing, for at least for time being, on the radio medium, not videos. I need a break from videos. I have basically done everything I could do to make my videos as good as they are, but unfortunately, when it comes to the reality of what I see around me, video is not exactly friendly to the legally blind. It never has been. Video requires a person to see, and if you happen to have bad eyesight, or you never had eyesight, visual is just as alien as listening to a foreign language you've never heard before. And so, of course, with a cataract in my right eye, I actually have been doing much better now with my cataract in my right eye, which I should explain that to you, that my cataract in my right eye is actually clearing up. How do you like that? How can that be, you ask? How can a cataract in the right eye clear up on its own? Well, here's a hint. It's not really quite on its own. You see, I asked Mother Asna to help ameliorate the problem. If it is part of my life chart to be one, she wouldn't be able to do it. If it was just... But don't forget, even in that case, sometimes the handicaps that we experience in some environs is more of a, see how we handle a situation like that. I've had a fractured foot, I had a cataract in my right eye, I have hearing loss, and yet, no matter how many ways I look at the world around me, I constantly try and overcome my difficulties. That's the thing that makes me such a good example for other people who are multiply handicapped. Here is a person who is legally blind, partially deaf, has a cataract in the right eye, ocular albinism, arthritis, bad teeth. Oh, one cracked, one tooth had split in half, and then of course the other one is missing, and then of course is getting old and cranky and grabby. Yet that person every day wakes up, does what they have to do every morning, brush your teeth, comb the hair, use the bathroom, whatever, and go out there and put the best foot forward every day. And that takes a lot of dedication and drive to do that, and not basically want to flip on your back and say, I quit. Mother knows that I am very much dedicated to the work I do. And Mother knows that I will always be there doing videos and things like that on YouTube, because that is indeed the way I am. I am not a person who quits, and I'm not a person who gives up. I'm a tough, tenacious war horse who's been through it all, kicked in the teeth enough times, had my tail yanked, basically found myself abused, beaten, battered, kicked, thrown, and yet every time, just like very tough Americans that I can be, I basically came out of it and say, excuse me, sir, could I have some more? The truth is that I have gone from, I'm no Patsy, I am a tough person, but I'm also a nice person. Which brings up a very interesting topic. You know, I was looking at some of the people in the world through its history, and there's an old expression say, the nice guys finish last. Excuse me. No, not always. Well, it may seem like the bad guys get all the good stuff, including the boys and the girls, whatever. It's actually in the end of the battle. It may look like the bad guys win, but at the end of the war, the good guys do. Think about that. Think about all of the times in history. Say, for example, Napoleon, the Butcher, as he was known as. This guy had France under his thumb. He was successful, but even so, he got into his campaigns, he pushed into Russia, he tried to really expand the Franco Empire, and to the point, unfortunately, where he went into Russia, he found out that his troops were hungry, they were cold, there was no food, because he underestimated the size of Russia and the severity of the Russian winters. The same thing happened also in Hitler, in Germany, and the same thing has happened many times throughout the era of the Russian bloc countries. The fact is that they all have this very big country they can retreat, and when they do, because the winters are harsh, the adversaries find themselves in a real pickle, putting it bluntly. Well, so as I said, good guys do not finish last. They may not always finish first, but they certainly do not finish last. It's the bad guys who find themselves in situations that are uncomfortable. There are many examples of this besides military leaders. You also have, of course, businessmen, businesswomen, drug dealers. Well, I guess you can call them business people. They are certainly business people in the sense that they focus on selling an illicit product, and that's what they do. They just don't have any protection from the bad guys who also think the same way they do they? I mean, if someone robs your stash, do you call the police? Of course not. You can't. Because guess what? You're selling illegal products. You call the police, you're going to go to jail. So you end up taking the law in your own hands by trying to go above the law, trying to become Mr. Self-Sufficient. Well, unfortunately enough, the other guy is thinking the same thing. Why do you think the Mexican cartels are such a big nightmare in Mexico? Because they have to all think outside of the Mexican programs like the police in Mexico City. They have to basically be their own military. Which brings up a problem about what's going on the U.S. border with Mexico, because there seems to be that there are some people in Congress who are seriously getting a bit perturbed with President Obama's immigration policies. President Obama's immigration policies basically is we'll give everybody a roof, a place to sleep, especially if they're under 21. Well, Americans starve and freeze and get bad teeth. Now, that doesn't make any sense. I should have the same right. I mean, if a person from South America can come in here, he can get his teeth fixed and he can get a bed in 3 squares, why can't I, who is born and raised in this country, be entitled to the same fringe benefits that I actually paid for in the form of taxes? I pay sales tax, I pay use tax, I pay electric bill tax, I pay phone bill taxes, I pay, when I was working odd jobs, I was paying income taxes. I'm now basically asking the same question every single American asks. The American government is not helping its own people. Talk about possibly finding yourself where you can say, the good guys finish last. I think in the end, the good guys are going to finish last. But they're going to win, because the good guys haven't done anything wrong to deserve reprisals. The bad guys, including bad politicians, are going to find themselves on the other side of that door of the Congress, looking in after they're voted out of office in midterms of this year on Election Tuesday. In fact, right now, the Democrats are concerned that they are going to potentially be losing a lot of Senate seats, and it might end up becoming a Republican run Senate to go along with the Republican run House. The way I see it is, if you guys can get things done like you're supposed to get things done, great. If not, well, then we're going to need to come up with a better plan. Period. I don't care who it is, what it is, how it is, where it is. There's a lot of individuals in this country who basically would like to overthrow the government with a hostile coup. And they are armed and raring and ready to go. Situations such as the spying through the National Security Agency, under the PRISM program, under the other programs that the National Security Agency has run, under the black budget, those sight out of mind Americans, the violation of the Patriot Act under Section 215, these things are the kind of things that are hurting the Americans' confidence in their own government. We are allowing our dictator to take control of the office. As one news article said, it started with Richard Milhouse Nixon. Excuse me. Let's be honest here. What Richard Milhouse Nixon did is nothing compared to what has happened and expanded on and extended on since. Let's look at the facts. Sure, he did a couple bad things. Okay? He had his men get involved with Watergate. He had his men, he signed the Controlled Substances Act, which we all know was the beginning of the war on drugs, which President Bush the first, and not so much President Bush the first, but he certainly didn't disagree with it. After all, Barbara Bush was one who was always claimed to say no to drugs. Oh, okay, well, I'll tell you something. I say no to drugs, but not because of the reason you tell me to. I say no to drugs because I don't like what it does to my body, and I don't like what it does to me. But that's just me, okay? Some people are fine taking illicit products or substances, such as methamphetamines and cocaine and crack and stuff like that. It makes them feel good. I've always said to myself why is our government doing this to ourselves? Why are we always trying to say you can't do this when you can use that? Why are we allowed to inhale cigarette smoke and drink alcohol, which we know are guaranteed poisons that will kill you? If not right away, they will kill you eventually. Everybody who's ever smoked cigarettes I know of has got coughing fits that you would never believe. The price of cigarettes gets so dang high, you can't even afford to buy cigarettes on my income. I happen to know a friend that spent so much money on her Social Security check and cigarettes that she couldn't even pay the rent to pay for her apartment. At $767 a month. You tell me that makes any sense. And then the same thing with alcohol. Oh, well, I gotta drink because it makes me feel good, they say. Yeah, until you get the bill. Then you don't feel so good anymore, do you? I have a friend who spends about, between him and his girlfriend, just by himself, by himself, he spends $400 plus a month on alcohol. $400 plus on alcohol. Out of $767 a month check. If it wasn't for the entitlement programs he had, he would never be able to get as far as he could go. He had made the decision to do that. He said to me, I can quit at any time. Oh, yeah? So why didn't you quit time ago when you could realize that you could take that $400 plus that you're blowing on alcohol and you could have used it to pay for pay off your expenses, your bills, and you could have gotten yourself ahead in life. That's what is the difference. If you can focus on getting the things that you need first, then the luxuries can come later on. Because that's just the way it has to go in this day and age. There is no more way to say to somebody that we can live high off the hog. Montgomery Scott said it good in reunification. A man does not drink if he's not willing to pay for it the next morning. What does that mean? Basically means you drink, you gotta get a hangover. When you get a hangover, that's because you drank, dummy. Well, the truth is a lot of people kind of like to have a party hardy, and then all of a sudden they find out that they're unable to keep that lifestyle going. I was watching right away last week, Hollywood Hillbillies, and Mike Cottrell asked David Weintraub to throw a party. With one catch, there was no alcohol served because Michael Cottrell decided not to have alcohol served. Me and Mike got upset. They drink up all my Coke Zeros. Okay, go to the store and get some more. At least your grandson chose not to drink alcohol, which I think is a start in the right direction. If you drink alcohol in the wrong direction, then you're going to get yourself in deep shit. You know what I'm saying? So that's the reason why. And even me said, well, at least I can say this is probably the tamest party I have ever seen. Because in Georgia, you got alcohol involved, and the men are sloshing around. They do stupid stuff. No shit. You ever been to Connecticut? Especially in the hills? Ask all the men and women when they have an alcohol party what happens. Half the time, they're so blitzed they can't even tell you their name. Never mind trying to tell you why they're drinking. So, that's something to think about too. By the way, as far as the issue about the so-called war on drugs and the 1033 program that was created originally under George Bush. No, was it George Bush? It was started with Ronald Reagan, but I'm not sure. 1033 program was created by the Pentagon as a way to give military equipment to local law enforcement agencies to prepare them to deal with the Mexican drug cartels and the gangs. The problem is in order to treat and deal with the Mexican drug cartel and gangs, you're handling military, mine-resistant armored personnel carriers, MRAPs, and you got submachine guns, and you got all these very high-powered combat gear. Unfortunately, that scares the public when you realize that now your police officer that has originally agreed to the oath to protect and serve is armed in such a way that he has now been told that the American people that he's supposed to protect is now his combatant. This is because they were trained, a lot of them, after they get in this gear under the rules, by military men who are trained to see anybody that is not us as the enemy. Which means, in this case, for the police department, if you're not police, you're the enemy. That's bogus. That doesn't make any sense for a civilian group like a police department. You don't see your people in any area of the world is your enemy. I mean, even in Ferguson, Missouri, one of the things that we learned was the people in the American people said, if they saw the military driving MRAPs down Main Street in Ferguson, they started to ask themselves, what have we created here that our police are armed as if they're going to war just to deal with a normal civil unrest? Well, the sad truth is, my friend, is what happened is we had taught our police officers that they are having a war on drugs. The war on drugs doesn't mean anything to me. It's just a bunch of propaganda, horse hockey, because every time I hear about the war on drugs, we keep losing. At least Oregon, Oregon is up for possibly, as is Maine and several other states, to consider legalizing marijuana for recreational use. I'll make it easy. Let's legalize all the different Schedule 1 drugs. With a disclaimer. Use at your own risk, dipshit. If you die because you decide OD on crack, that's your problem. It's not mine. Don't make it a problem for me. If you want to be responsible and use common sense and using just a little bit of the stuff, if you think it's going to help you, that's fine. Use it for yourself. You don't give it to minors. You don't start there trying to sell it without a proper tax ID. You do it the right way, and then you'll be fine. That's the way it should have been done. How much money in income taxes are we as a country losing out? Drug dealers are rolling in the dough while the American people are basically starving to death because the entitlement programs that they need the money for can't be provided because they can't get any more money from taxes from legitimate people because people don't have jobs. You tell me that makes sense. If we were charging taxes and regulating illegal drugs as legal drugs, and rightfully operating as businesses, we would have a huge chunk of money in our coffers. We could have been bringing home the bacon and then some. We would have had money for the poor and the homeless and the hungry. We don't have that because we can't use it as taxable income. Oh, I'm sorry, but every car we seize from a drug dealer, police officers have the right to sell it. But they're not getting the same kind of money that they would have gotten if the guy was lawfully obligated to pay his income taxes on his business. He would have made more money on that. Now you probably ask yourself, why do people use drugs? Why do people sell drugs in the first place? Because their job is not there anywhere else in the legitimate job sectors. Okay? Oh, sure, in Las Vegas you become a prostitute. But a prostitute is not exactly quite in the same league as someone who's selling heroin, PCP, LSD, methamphetamines, marijuana, hashish, whatever. These guys are raking in the doughs beyond anything that any lady in the evening could ever bring in, unless she's a really good lady of the evening. These guys, some of them make their entire living on them. It's also pathetic that the same programs that were created under Clinton for welfare reform has actually caused welfare failure. And this has caused these people to have no choice, especially after the limitation of service is up, the 2 years, that they all of a sudden cannot get a job because they have a very unsatisfactory work record or their credit score stinks on ice. So leaving basically everybody going, I'm sorry, but I can't hire you because you're not good enough. Oh, but you know what? I know this. I can't really hire you anyway because I don't have the money coming in to pay you from an employee. Because I had to cut back all my employees in order to deal with Obamacare. That don't make sense to me, does it? You're making all these programs and people are finding themselves seriously questioning about what have we done to ourselves as a country. The sad truth is what we've done to ourselves is basically turn our entire country into a people who either A, try to do the right thing, try to get a job, which is finding themselves miserably impossible to do, to having to then finding out another way to bring home an income by doing something that is not the right thing to do. One of those people who have been doing the wrong thing from the start find themselves put in jail. They're sitting in jail. They got a bad rap sheet now. They try to go get a legitimate job on the table, and they can't because they got a bad rap sheet. So they have to go back and doing the same crap that put them in jail in the first place. That doesn't make a damn bit of sense to me. Something has to change. Something, you cannot keep going like that. Okay, guys. So, for the time being, don't forget that, as I said, it'll be a couple of weeks. I'm going to be taking a little break from video. I got to get my hair retouched anyway this Thursday. And Lumi will be doing some unboxings and demonstrations with my help. Well, in a sense, I'll give her the instruction what to do for testing and things like that. But other than that, it'll pretty much be her maintaining the video channel for her channel. We're not going to really be doing much work with my main channel other than we will post these podcasts up on both yourlisting.com and www.youtube.com/USCR/BICHELA. That way you can be kept abreast of whichever media you want. You got it, okay? Don't forget to leave comments in the comment section below, and I will read them. And if you have suggestions for topics, let me know too. Okay? Bye-bye, everybody.